Okay, can everyone hear me? Yes, can you hear me in the back? Awesome. Great. Well, welcome everybody to our lunch series session all about sustainability careers. I am thrilled to see how packed this classroom is. My name is Jen Graham. I'm the Associate Director within the MIT Sloan Sustainability Initiative. If we haven't yet met, I very much encourage you to introduce yourself after this session or at a future program. I oversee all things related to student engagement for our team, so that includes our sustainability certificate, lunch series programs like this, guest speakers, networking mixers, internship programs, you name it. I oversee all of that, so if you're interested in just becoming familiar with our team and programs, just introduce yourself because I would love to learn more about your background and how we can be a vital resource to you during your experience here at MIT. I'm just going to hand this mic off to my co-presenter here to get set up. Thanks, Samaya.
Sorry I'm late.
No problem. Before we get started with today's program, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that the Sustainability Initiative sits on the traditional and unceded territory of the Wampanoag of Aquinnah and Mashpee Wampanoag tribes. We want to recognize these ancestral caretakers, acknowledge the painful history and forced removal of these Indigenous peoples from their land, and honor these Indigenous peoples as we utilize this space. Before we talk about today's agenda, we have two very exciting upcoming programs that I want you all to acknowledge and take part in. In the spirit of networking, we're actually partnering with the Sloan Energy Club for a program all about the energy transition, kind of a 101 session, a workshop where you can better understand how to get into this landscape. As we'll talk later in the session, the co-president for the Sloan Energy Club is joining us on a panel. So if you're interested in joining us during this program, here's a quick QR code for you to RSVP on Sloan Groups. And then the week after, in the spirit of environmental justice, we are very excited to be inviting Dominique Drakeford. She is an environmental activist to join us virtually for a program all about redefining sustainability for all. We're very excited. We're going to be partnering with the Sloan DE&I office on this program. And we're offering this program to kind of a wider MIT community. So if you have connections across campus, please feel free to share with your classmates. And here's again another quick QR code if you want to RSVP. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about the sustainability career landscape. We're then going to pivot to explore your options as an MIT student. We'll talk about some effective job search strategies, and then we'll go in more specifically on student engagement opportunities while you're here for a very short amount of time, but we'll also highlight some different resources that are beyond MIT. And then we'll finish out the program with a discussion. We've invited a recent alum of ours and a current student who are going to share their own job search journey. So it should not come as a surprise to anyone in this room that the sustainability career landscape is booming. Just last year, we saw the Inflation Reduction Act that proposed over $370 billion to invest in power, building, and transportation infrastructure. We're seeing companies that are making good on their net zero commitments. We're seeing more and more companies direct their attention to DE&I efforts and environmental justice. We're seeing huge growth in the renewable energy space. We're seeing VCs and private equity firms invest more in climate tech. We're seeing a need for ESG products and services. We're seeing retail companies and consumer good companies take huge strides in the circular economy space. So this is all to say that there is a huge need for climate adaptation solutions, and this is becoming more and more urgent. So climate change, as we all are well aware, is affecting businesses and supply chains in many ways. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the risks to business that are the effects of climate change. But to highlight just a few, companies are facing direct physical risks to their space, disruption to their supply chains, policy and reputational risks, and then access to capital risks. However, with this global challenge, we're also seeing a ton of business opportunities. And again, we just highlighted a few examples of those. We're seeing savvy entrepreneurs, investors, and corporate players really play a vital role in mitigating climate risk exposure. A few examples, so human capital, as I just mentioned, a lot of companies are investing in DE&I, sustainability innovation. A lot of companies are getting involved on the climate policy side. And then, of course, there's a multi-billion-dollar market for new climate tech. It's a very exciting time to be considering a job in the sustainability space. And just to kind of bring it all home, our essential message is that we are in an era where every single job plays a vital role in shaping the sustainable future. So it's not just a career choice, it's a global responsibility that you all have to consider how you can make an impact in creating this sustainable future. Now, as we pivot to talk about exploring your own options as a student, what we do is we love to showcase this visual. This is a 2x2 matrix that was created by our colleague, Katie Cross. Katie Cross is the director of the Sustainability Center at Duke's Fuqua School of Business. And what she has done is create an effective model to help answer the question, do you want to make a green company big or a big company green? And what she's done is she's categorized organizations and roles into two areas, traditional and sustainability oriented. So what we've done here is we've actually highlighted students from the Sustainability Certificate Program. These are students that have graduated over the past 2 years. And we've highlighted where they've landed. Not only where have they landed in their career post-graduation, but where do they land on this matrix? So it gives you a very good sense of the different types of roles that our students go into. So there's no one category that the majority of our students really fall into. We've seen that our students are taking what they learn in the classroom and really making impact in a whole variety of areas, whether that's a sustainability-oriented organization in a more, say, traditional business role, or they're going into a quote-unquote traditional organization in a more sustainability-oriented role, as pointed out in some of these job postings here. What I also like to share with students is this quick stat of all of the students that have graduated from our certificate program. So we have been around, our certificate program has been around for 13 years. We have over 650 graduates of this program. And this quick chart highlights where they are working in relation to that 2x2 matrix. So as I pointed out before, that was just categorizing a few students that graduated from the past 2 years. But as you can see, overall, we still have a ton of folks in this community that still fit into that kind of traditional role. Now, I mention this because we're seeing a shift. We're seeing there's a blurring of lines between what we formerly considered traditional and what we formerly considered sustainability opportunities. And I think this is a reflection of the growing recognition that sustainability no longer sits in just one department or in one person's job description. It's an imperative role to modern business operations overall, which is very exciting because you'll be able to land and influence your organization post-graduation, no matter what that role might be. And so the shift, as we know, is driven by global challenges, regulatory changes, and evolving expectations from consumers. So making sustainability a pervasive consideration, you must do that in every single job role from here on out. And I'm gonna leave you with a couple of more stats that I think are gonna be very helpful as you start to think about your own job search strategy. So only a couple of years ago did the Sustainability Initiative do our own job search placement survey for graduating students. So I only have data from the class of 22 and 23. But what this does is this highlights how they landed their job and what industry they landed in, which I think is really helpful as you start to consider different industries for yourself. So if you look to the right, you can see we have a ton of students who are still in some of these traditional areas, such as consulting. but we've seen a huge uptick in energy and tech, and climate tech specifically, which is very exciting. And then you can see kind of a breakdown of the top 9 categories here. But if we talk about job source, you'll see that, of course, several of our students, especially from our executive programs, go back to their sponsoring company. But we have quite a big number of students, almost a quarter, who land their job post-summer internship, which is really, really an impressive stat, and just speaks to how important the summer internship search is for any first-year MBAs in the room. But the number I really want to highlight is this 34%. So 34% from our past 2 graduating classes landed their job through a job posting or through their own personal network. So with that, I'm actually going to hand the microphone to Sumaya to talk about some job search strategies, keeping in mind how essential this personal network is to your job search.
Thank you, Jen. Hello, everybody. My name is Sumaya. I work in the CDO. I do career advising for the MBAs, and I lead the team that does advising for the MBAs. So this image might be familiar to some of you already, highway, dirt road, jungle. This is a way that we kind of characterize what the recruitment path can look like for various types of careers. And for sustainability, you can see opportunities in all pathways. So the highway is, you could consider it to be the market that comes to you while you're in school. So it's sort of a unique experience to being a student. These tend to be larger companies. They often hire a number of MBAs kind of in a cohort system. They have usually recruitment teams dedicated to the whole process. And they're coming to Sloan and other schools to recruit students. And then the dirt road is more or less what the job search looks like outside of school when you don't have this unique experience of the market coming to you. So this is more of a student-driven search where you are getting out there into the world, definitely networking. That's a big part of the process. And you are exploring the options to understand the landscape. You're developing relationships with people, and you're basically kind of self-directing your own kind of search. These tend to be, it could be larger companies that maybe don't hire as many MBAs typically as maybe the highway companies do, or it could be smaller companies, growing startups. So you might see a variety of kinds of companies on the dirt road. So dirt road doesn't only mean smaller, just one thing to keep in mind. And then the jungle is definitely a self-directed search, and this is typically startups, starting your own company or creating your own opportunity at a company, whether it's a startup or a large company, just kind of creating your own opportunity, whether that's for an internship or a full-time job. So this is definitely networking heavy, especially if you are thinking about much smaller companies or startups. Working with the startup often starts by developing a relationship with them, potentially over the course of months, because they like to know who they're hiring, and they might not be ready to hire, right now. They might be doing more just-in-time hiring, kind of like the dirt road. And so as you get to know them over time, you're building that relationship, and then when they are ready to hire, they're thinking of you. So that's a little bit about what those paths look like. And in terms of dirt road or even jungle strategies, we sort of divide the whole search into roughly 2 phases. And so this is the first phase. This might also look familiar to some of the MBAs. And this is your, let's call it your hypothesis testing phase, where you are starting with self-knowledge. So what do you know about your own goals, your values, your strengths, your interests? What do you think would be a good fit for you? And then from there, brainstorming targets, so potential career paths. And for the MBAs, we define a target as industry, function, and geography. So brainstorming, what do you think you're interested in? The kinds of roles, the kinds of companies, different kinds of sustainability. And then you do a lot of research, both by looking at job descriptions, online research, the news, just keeping up with the space, and definitely talking to people with informational conversations. And through that research piece, you're testing your hypotheses, you're validating your ideas. So what you're trying to figure out is, these brainstorm targets I have, this is what I think I'm interested in, is this a fit for me? Like, do I think I would like it? Would I be a fit for this kind of space, company, role? And this is sort of the key, how feasible is it for me? So based on someone with my professional background, how easy or challenging of a search do I think this would be for me, right? So one of the things you can be doing is when you're talking to people informationally and learning about what they do and what's happening and trends and their problems and priorities, you can be like, hey, so what do you think of a candidate with my background? even show them your resume and say, what do I have that you guys are looking for? What are you looking for? What do I seem to be missing? And you can hear from the market, like, you'd be a great candidate for this, or, you've got most of what we were looking for, maybe just focus a little bit more on closing these gaps. Or they might be like, honestly, we're really looking for someone with X, Y, and Z, and so this might be more challenging for you. And so as you do that up front, you have an idea then earlier on if this path is going to be, again, a fit and feasible. And so the idea is you spend time on this up front so that you ideally have a smoother search when you're at the point of searching. And so if you do find yourself, especially on the dirt road or jungle path, that tends to be more springtime recruitment and just-in-time hiring. And so what you're trying to avoid is going straight into the job search, applying. I'm not getting any interviews, I'm not getting any traction. And it's because you didn't find out up front that, like, actually this is really going to be kind of a stretch for you. And therefore, you might need to change how you approach your job search for that path, right? So it's really spending this time up front so that when you're ready to go out and search, it's smoother, right? And so in terms of, those are the details that I just talked about. And then in terms of that second phase, so this is when you're getting out there to actually execute on the search, right? So you are customizing your materials. Now that you know what they're looking for, you're aligning your resume and your cover letters and all of that good stuff to the job and what they're looking for. You're executing on the search. So now you're doing networking with maybe less of an informational mindset and more of like a, hey, I'm looking for these jobs, right? And how you talk about yourself in these conversations can be different as well. And then of course, getting into interviewing stages and ultimately getting a job offer, right? So again, doing the work from the previous slide up front would help make this a little bit easier, especially in dirt road and jungle settings where you can find a variety of kinds of companies, areas of sustainability, obviously, qualifications that they're looking for, timing, recruitment processes, right? So you really want to understand the landscape up front and then narrow down to the couple of different paths that you think you want to pursue. And I did mention on the jungle path that could include creating your own internship, your own opportunity, right? This is a very high level look at what this would look like, but I wanted to just kind of plant the seed and give you maybe something to get going with. So it really starts by active listening, really understanding your audience. So as you're having some informational conversations, what are their unmet needs? How could you contribute, right? So starting to get an idea of, based on what they're working on, what their problems are, their needs, my skills and interests and background, here's how I think I could maybe start to contribute to them, right? But it's really understanding the audience. And so if you are thinking of trying to create your own internship at maybe like a small startup, in the energy space, or like lots of really cool things going on, even with MIT originated startups, getting to know them over time. So again, that like longer networking period helps you really understand them so that you're then better positioned to be like, hey, here's how I think I could help you this summer. Are you open to talking about that? So at some point you do want to make that ask and see, would you be interested in me like scoping out a project and seeing how I could help you guys this summer? Just kind of feel them out, right? And as you're talking to people, you'll get a sense of like, is it kind of jiving, right? Are the conversations warming up? Do they seem to be interested in you and learning more, right? Is the conversation continuing? It's usually not in the first meeting where you would want to ask them that, but that's not a hard rule. So I have seen students like successfully reach out to people cold on LinkedIn and they send a nice message and they're basically asking, would you be open to talking to me about working with you guys this summer? And it ends up being a yes. Other times they do spend much more time getting to know the company and then it kind of gets naturally to a point where it's a better time to ask. So typically not in the first meeting, but again, that's not a hard rule and you got to kind of feel out the situation. And then this is sort of the key. You're the one proposing what the project could look like, right? So you are not making them do the mental work and the mental hoop jumping of like looking at your resume and figuring out your background and being like, oh, this is how this person could help. You do that for them, right? Make it easy for them to want to continue the conversation and explore the possibility. So again, based on what you know about them, your background, your goals, et cetera, you would propose the project. And they can work it out with you, right? What you put forward doesn't have to be final, but you're the one driving that process. You're doing the scope of work, deliverables, the actual work scope, timelines, et cetera. And so you're putting that forward to them and you're giving them something to react to and they work it out with you. And then you negotiate, right? So you're putting forward something on the terms, the dates, the location, but again, you figure it out with them. And you're basically trying to come up with alignment between what they need and what you can offer. So if you're interested in that, come talk to the MBA advising team if you're an MBA, and talk to students who have done it, right? There are students who have created their own internships, not only in sustainability. It can be worth talking to students who've done that in other areas as well, because there's often a lot of parallels in like just what that process looks like.
You good, right? Yeah, thank you. So as we think about this dirt road approach to your career journey, we are going to share with you a whole bunch of resources that are available to MIT students, as well as some resources that I know students have utilized beyond the MIT list of resources that I'll share. So the first thing that I wanted to highlight is a whole list of opportunities for hands-on learning and skills development. So we have a couple of case competitions that are fairly popular among our students highlighted here. The Mint case competition is focused on impact investing. I believe applications just opened up for this case competition. And I will also mention, I'll share all of these slides with everybody through our WhatsApp and via email after this session. The Questrom Sustainability Case Competition is a chance for you to compete for $50,000 toward a new venture that solves a sustainability problem. Unfortunately, applications just closed for this, but if you're a first-year MBA, definitely consider applying for next year. I'm highlighting some of the action learning labs that a lot of our students take advantage of as part of the certificate program. By no means is this an exhaustive list of the action learning labs we advocate enrolling in, but S-Lab, of course, is taught by our team, USA Lab and D-Lab. We've seen students make some really valuable connections and also gain some expertise by taking on some projects during these courses. Did you know that a couple of our student clubs actually oversee some consulting projects as well? SEED, which is focused on entrepreneurs and international development. They offer consulting projects each fall and spring. So if you're interested in exploring that, definitely reach out to that student club. And MyTech as well. So last spring, they launched something called Launchpad, which again is a consulting project opportunity for students to take on during the spring and fall semesters. So make sure you're engaging with these student clubs if you're interested in gaining a little bit more experience during the semester. And then lastly, I'm going to highlight some student-led conferences here at MIT. I'm not only going to advocate that you attend these conferences, but I'm also going to advocate that you become part of the organizing team, because I've seen so many success stories from students who are part of maybe the sponsorship team or the content team, because they're doing the outreach. They're networking with folks who then become the keynote speakers for the conference. I've seen so many students land internship and full-time opportunities through just participating in the organization of some of these amazing programs. So if you're interested in learning more, again, reach out to each one of these organizing teams. Some more MIT resources. I already highlighted some of the student clubs and the amazing work they're doing. Here at MIT Sloan, we don't have just one sustainability club. We actually have a variety that specialize in specific topic areas. So that's what we advise students to do in terms of taking part in the student club organizations here during your time as a student. Career fairs and networking nights. So the CDO is hosting an MBA networking night next week. So if you haven't yet signed up to attend that, very much advise that you take a look. And then there's a couple of sustainability related career fairs happening both this fall and spring. So make sure that you're staying updated on those highlights and when those dates are announced. Some other CDO resources, maybe Sumaya, I'll hand it back to you to just highlight a few listed here.
Yeah, so one thing just on the club side, I have heard, I'm not in there myself, but I have heard that the WhatsApp group for the Entrepreneurship Club is a great place to find out about jobs just getting dropped in there all the time. And they won't all, of course, necessarily be sustainability related, but if you're hoping to get into a sustainability kind of startup, that could be a place where some of the company names or roles are a good place to find out. So just something to check out that I've heard. So in terms of CDO resources, the Sloan Industry Advisors, this is a group of alumni, typically a bit more senior, across more than 17 industries, I think. And these are folks who have raised their hands saying, we want to talk to students. And so they're a great resource for you to understand an industry, where is it going, trends, like kind of insights into it. They are I would say reach out to like second years and younger alumni and other folks to get your basics answered about an industry, right? And then save your more advanced conversations or more in-depth, insightful conversations for the Sloan Industry Advisors, but they're a great resource as well. The full-time and internship directories, these are for MBA and MFin, and this will tell you where did students intern and where did they go full-time after graduating, and it goes back a couple of class years, so that's a great way to, they're Excel files, download them, filter and sort by geography, industry, function, company, lots to play around with and explore there. The sustainability industry community on your CDO. So if you go to your CDO site and at the top left in the menu bar, it's industry and affinity communities. There is one for sustainability, and that's sort of a shortcut to resources, clubs, some of the key Sloan industry advisors, blog posts, resources, et cetera. And then there is the subsidized internships with the Sustainability Initiative, and we have a number of companies coming in for presentations, coffee chats, so keep an eye on those company events, and that's a great kind of low-key way to get introduced to companies as well.
And I'm also excited to announce that coming soon, we are launching Sustainability Career Conversations. So these are going to be small group conversations with MIT Sloan sustainability alumni that are focused on specialized areas in sustainability. So the goal here is to create a sort of mentorship, an informal mentorship program, really including some experts that have utilized their MIT degree in these different areas. So we have a few that will be announced very shortly, so make sure that you stay up to date through our communications. And then Sumaya just mentioned we have 2 subsidized internship programs for any first-year MBAs that are in the room today. This first one, the Sustainability Initiative Internship Fund, we work in partnership with the CDO to actually solicit sustainability-oriented internships. We post them all together at the start of February, so when you return for a spring semester. And we provide some additional funding for those students. To the first 5 that accept an offer from a participating organization, we offer some additional compensation for your summer internship. In addition to that, we oversee another program called the Sloan Social Impact Fund. This is a little bit different. The student will go out and accept an offer from a social impact focused organization or a nonprofit or government entity and apply for additional funding toward that summer internship. These applications will open later in the spring semester, and we'll actually have a whole info session when you return from winter break all about these 2 programs. So with that, before we pivot to our 2 panelists, just highlighting some additional resources to take into consideration that are beyond MIT. So again, a non-exhaustive list of effective job boards that I have seen students utilize. Some are focused more on general green jobs. Some are a little bit more specialized, such as good food jobs. But these are some resources that I'll continue to share through our WhatsApp group, through our newsletter communications that I highly advise you take advantage of. Some other conferences that you should consider are listed here. I'm going to plug ClimateCap. ClimateCap is an annual conference focused on MBA students that happens every February. Tickets will be announced, I think, later in October. But again, just stay up to date through our communications so that you can take advantage and participate. And then a couple of additional resources. I've seen the Green Jobs Network on LinkedIn post jobs every single day. It's a really easy way to just stay up to date and join that or follow that group. And then lastly, as many of you might be aware, this past week the Biden administration just announced the American Climate Corps program. So we're very excited to learn more about this, but definitely advise that you take advantage of this and explore it for yourself. Okay, so with that, we're going to pivot and actually invite 2 of our panelists to share a little bit more about their own career journey. So welcome, Chris and Amar. Thank you both for being here. I would love first for each of you to just introduce yourself, share a little bit about your career journey, what led you to Sloan, and during your time as a student, what sort of resources did you utilize, or what sort of strategies did you consider as you were applying to internships or full-time opportunities?
Hey everyone, great to meet you and see you all. I'm sure I've also met some of you through some of the Sloan Energy and Climate Club sessions. So great to see some familiar faces. But my name is Amar, and before Sloan, I was working in consulting, mostly doing industrials work for private equity companies. And I also did a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work at the firm that I was at. And so I wanted to combine those two interests to do something kind of focused on climate and sustainability, specifically because I thought that that would be a nice intersection of those two skill sets, given that a lot of kind of underrepresented or underserved communities were going to be impacted by climate change most acutely. And so coming into Sloan, that was really my primary focus because I didn't really have a lot of background in that space. And so I took advantage of a lot of the things that Sloan had to offer, coming to a lot of sustainability lunch and learns like this, coming to a lot of the Sloan Energy Club, things like that. But the big thing for me was also trying to get involved outside of the Sloan community. So getting involved with the broader MIT community. So taking advantage of things like the MIT Energy Conference, the MIT Climate and Energy Prize, the MIT Energy Hack. And through those relationships, I was able to really kind of source the internship that I wanted to kind of focus on, which was Climate and Energy Ventures, or Clean Energy Ventures rather, which is a venture capital firm focused on climate tech. And I was able to source that internship through the MIT Energy Conference, helping to organize a panel that they were going to be on. So really goes to say, and through contacts that I had with people that were at the broader MIT community but weren't necessarily part of Sloan. So all that's to say that, by getting involved outside of the Sloan community and getting immersed in the MIT community, it really, really helped me.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Chris. It's good to be back. I was a Sloan Fellow, class of 22. So came in a little different situation. I'd had a 14-year career. I was a partner in a proprietary trading firm. I ran our New England office down the street in Cambridge. And I looked up before and then was confirmed during COVID. And I was like, I don't want to do this for my whole life. I want to do something with a better impact. So I came here to focus on how do I combine the skills I have in markets with a sustainability focus. And so Sloan Fellows only have a year. If any Sloan Fellows are in here, I'm sure they're already feeling a little pressured because they're like halfway done. But so it's just trying to get the exposure to as much as I could. I think the best thing is to explore as many things and then focus. I never really did. I looked into entrepreneurship. I looked into private investing. I did a lot of research on public ESG stuff at the time because that's where my skills lied. And then just talking to people though is really the thing that's how I ended up meeting the person. So if Sloan founded One Shot, needed a markets person, and because of my people I knew in the sustainability initiative and just talking to people, when he came chatting with Jason and a classmate of mine, they said, "Oh, you should talk to Chris," and that's how I met the person. And there was a 2-year MBA who works for us too, and she actually learned about One Shot through her through stuff outside MIT. But then I knew who she was. We weren't close, but I knew her from classes. So when her application came through, I was like, oh, this is a good person. And so it's just, getting yourself out there on sustainability. But if you want to be in a startup and you want to be even just sustainability in general, so few, unless you're going to a few major, consultancies or things. So many of this is the dirt road or the jungle where you don't know what it's going to be. The role is not there ahead of time. So it's just figuring out what roles might be open when talking to as many people as you can. I would say the proposing your own internship is great if you find a startup you like. And even if you can do it not in the summer, like our hire this fall was from undergrad, but somebody who is like, oh, what about if I did this 10 hours a week? And we're like, that'd be awesome. That's so easy for us to do. And she crushed it. And so we gave her an offer to come back in the fall. And so that type of work, especially for startups, is great because it's really hard to commit 6 months out. We don't know where we're going to be. If we know we need it, we're going to hire as soon as we can. So.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'm going to ask only one more question and then I'll open it up to the audience, just being mindful of time. If you had one key piece of advice to any current students who are in the job search market, what would that be?
Alice Ritter said, talk to as many people as you can. I mean, you'll be shocked how many people will respond to an MIT email address. And especially if you're not asking for a job at the time, if you're just wanting to learn and talk about things, like You can talk to people, and most of those conversations won't lead anywhere else, but it just will help you get an idea and then reflect on, like, is this what I really want to do? I talked to many roles where they liked my skills, and I was like, those aren't the skills I want to work on. So, but the more that you think about it and talk to it outside, the more you can get confirmation.
Yeah, and building on that, I would say make sure that you're targeted with your approaches. I think it's like very easy to just try to do, even within sustainability, try to focus on, if you look at that, like the quadrant that we were looking at before, the matrix, like try to do 3 or 2 of those things, but really focus on one thing and then one specific subsector within that. Because I think it's easy to be like a mile wide, inch deep in terms of your interests and the type of work and people that you've spoken to. But I think a lot of the value will come from being like very, very focused. So spending the time early on to figure out like where you want to focus on. Like I knew going in that I wanted to focus on climate tech venture capital because I had kind of done some kind of similar investment work in the past and wanted to focus there. And I think that made a lot of the searches a lot more fruitful and a lot of the conversations more fruitful because I knew like specifically what I wanted to do. Because at the end of the day, with all the stuff going on in the MBA and things at Sloan, like time is very valuable.
Okay, one more question. Are you both open to students reaching out via LinkedIn?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. I sit at CIC across the street. I'm happy to chat with people or have coffee. Yeah, we can chat.
Great, thank you. So I know we're coming up on time, but for those of you who can stick around, I would love to open it up to for any questions, either to our panelists, to the CDO, or myself. Yes.
Yeah, so in this space, what's the opportunities like for like international students?
Great question. You wanna take this?
Yeah, I can try. So I don't have data offhand. That might be something I would be able to get to answer that with a little bit more certainty. Actually, tracking MBA internships and full-time jobs and whether or not they're categorized as sustainability is something we'll be better able to do going forward. In our employment survey, where you guys will report your offers, we now have the option to select sustainability as like one characteristic of your offer. So that'll make it easier to come up with that kind of data going forward. But in general, I would say it runs the gamut. So I think you can have success on the highway, the dirt road, or the jungle. I would say, like, we do see international students land at all kinds of startups, although you might find a little bit more success on the dirt road if it's a company that has more familiarity and resources with like doing the visa process, for example. That said, you've got OPT, so that buys you a couple of years before you can kind of kick that can down the road, which helps a little bit, right? So I think it's also one of the things to explore. So as you come up with companies that you're interested in different spaces, ask them, right? Have you hired international students? Are you open to that? Here's how it works for me. And you can just kind of feel them out along the way. So like the short answer is yes, students have success in a variety of different ways. Feel it out during your informational part of the search.
I'm also going to just add that I know Climate Cap, that MBA-led conference, is going international starting in 25. So they plan to actually offer like 2 conferences a year. So that is something they'll be investing in, creating these more concrete opportunities for international students. The other thing I'll mention is that if you go either to the CDO or come talk to the initiative, we are more than happy to make some introductions to international students or recent alums that have landed that could be vital to your search. Yes.
I'm trying to understand recruiting timelines, and so if it seems likely that you might get an offer, then actually want to hold out for one. And I'm not talking about companies that you kind of contact on your own, but for those companies that do recruit at Sloan and agree to do that, what do they owe you, if anything, in terms of giving you time?
So we have MBA recruiting policies. I don't know the dates off the top of my head. I should. But for a company recruiting for either an internship or full-time, we do have dates that are like the earliest dates that a company can give as the decision deadline. So for internships, I think it's like February 2nd, something like that, which means if a company is recruiting through the CDO, they should be giving you at least until then to make a decision. However, companies don't always do that, and you might find yourself with a shorter decision timeline, in which case you can point them to the policies and be like, hey, here's Sloan's policies. Can you honor that, please? And hopefully they will say yes. They might give you just some time and not the full time. So we are seeing some tighter decision timelines kind of across the board, but that's basically it. Like, familiarize yourself with those dates. If you get an earlier deadline, point the company to those, ask if they can honor it. And if they're not going to, like, always just come and talk to us at the CDO, right? Because sometimes there are things to consider in terms of the timelines and whether or not you could or should continue to recruit after accepting when they did not honor our policies. If it is a company that is not recruiting through Sloan and they give you a short timeline, you can also refer them to our policies. They are less inclined, or we don't hold them to it as tightly because they're not recruiting through us, but you never know, they might honor that as well. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I guess where would we find those dates?
Your CDO. Your CDO, and if you go to the MBA homepage, and then there's like those couple of bullets for the 2 class years, you'll find recruiting policies for both classes there.
And I'll mention too, if you're exploring the sustainability internship program, we require companies to give you 3 weeks before making a decision.
If you're looking for it now and you can't find it, let me know. I'll help you find it.
Great. Well, I know we're 5 minutes over time, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time here. So we'll stick around if you have any individual questions, but thank you all for joining. Look forward to engaging with you in the future, and we'll see you around campus. Thank you.